Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a little different type of video. Maybe this kind of video belongs more on like a podcast style, but regardless, if you couldn't tell, am a huge Formula One fan, and with the 2026 Formula One season just a little under a month away, I thought it would be appropriate to do some predictions. So I've got two tier lists lined up here, one for the drivers' standings and one for the constructors' standings you see here. I just have them ordered here at the bottom by constructors' championship order for 2025, and the drivers are placed who scored more points in that season ahead of their prospective teammate. So, we're going to start off here with the Drivers' Championship, going, of course, in ascending order from now 22nd and last place all the way up to who I believe will be the 2026 World Champion. I know in recent years we've had replacements and driver swaps and people getting fired or relieved of their duties and replaced mid-season. But I'm not going to get into all of that. We are just going to assume that the 22 drivers that we are going to Australia with will be the same 22 that take the track in Abu Dhabi in December. With that all being said, let's get right into my predictions with who's it going to be? Franco Colapinto. You are the unlucky man that I am predicting to come in 22nd and last place this season. Truth be told, I've never been a big fan of Franco Colapinto. I've never thought of him as an incredible driver. I know with Williams in 2024, after he replaced Logan Sargent, he did show improvements over Sargent for sure. But I think you honestly could have put me in the car and seen better results. Anyway, he did show flashes of speed, but he wasn't able to score a point all year. I know the Alpine was a terrible car in 2025, by far the worst on most weekends, but I mean, at some point, like, if you're not able to score a point, that really says things, no matter how bad the car is. You know, very rarely, especially when people were talking about in 2025, that was the closest the field had ever been in terms of the gap from the fastest car to the slowest car. It was the tightest it had ever been and the most competitive. Being unable to score a single point across a 24 race season. I know he didn't get all 24 races, but he still got like 19 of them or something like that. So being unable to score a point all season is really not saying very many good things for him. I know with the Mercedes engine, it's supposed to be really good, and Alpine now has that Mercedes engine, and so could Franco start scoring points? Is Alpine gonna be better than they were in 2025? I would imagine so, but until I see it, and maybe I'm also just biased against him, I can't really put him any higher than 22nd. So I mean, someone has to be last, and I think it's gonna be Franco. Next up, who are we going to put in 21st? Oh boy. I didn't really think a whole lot about this, especially not the bottom places. Um, oh boy. It's going to be, I'm deciding between three right now. Am I building the suspense well enough for you? It's going to be Lance Stroll. There we go. Lance, every year, has shown less and less interest in being in Formula One. And he gets clowned on, and most of it is for good reason. You know, I think that tied with not to like get super political or like drag in factors outside of Formula One, but the Epstein files that got released recently, his mother, Lance's mother, was actually, and I think maybe his father as well, were named in the Epstein files in some capacity. So, and obviously all that happened when Lance was like 5 or something like that. So obviously Lance himself didn't have anything to do with all that stuff. And I actually don't think Lance is a bad guy. I think it's mostly his dad that's kind of pushed him into the position that he's in, where he'd rather be doing something else. And he doesn't like all that pressure on him and all that and everything else that comes with being a Formula One driver. That's maybe not the life that he would have chosen to live, but it's the one that his dad has kind of forced him into. And so, in a way, assuming that that is true, I feel bad for Lance. But regardless, so I honestly, I could see if you've been a Formula One fan, or at least if you've kind of done your research after getting into F1, and you know the name Nikita Mazepin. He was a Russian Formula One driver around 2020, 2021. And he actually essentially got kicked out of the sport. Now, he wasn't very good either. So his seat wasn't going to last very long. But he essentially got banned and blacklisted from the sport because of the whole Russia invading Ukraine thing. So honestly, I could see maybe his parents eventually get in some sort of trouble if anybody actually ever gets punished for being in the Epstein files. And so if that happens and maybe his dad gets locked up or something, then he might step away from Formula One. Because I doubt that he himself would get in any trouble, because again, he was a child at that time. But I could see him stepping away due to family matters and whatnot. And so I have Lance Stroll at 21st. I just don't think that he's going to be very locked in this year, even if Aston Martin are able to produce a very good car, which I think they'll be all right. Maybe not fantastic, world ending type of speed, but like they'll be good. Next up, I am going to put Arvid Lindblad, the new young buck, the only rookie, the only true rookie that we have going into this season. I admittedly don't know a whole lot about him. Obviously he's a rookie, and so he hasn't had a lot of time on the big screen of Formula One. So, but I'm skeptical of how good the Racing Bulls car will be. It'll really depend on how good the Red Bull engine is, obviously. But what we've seen, I know this is more of a Red Bull thing and not a Racing Bulls thing, but it just seems like everything goes into Max Verstappen, and it's hard to see that changing for any reasonable, well, any genuine reason anyway. So, plus he's also a rookie. He's not that experienced. So, and I know a lot of people were rough on Isaac Hadjar before this season, thinking that he wasn't going to do great, and then he kind of blew everybody away and exceeded their expectations. But it would be foolish to just think that that's going to happen every year. That we're going to have a rookie that comes and blows everyone away. I don't think he'll necessarily be bad, but I mean he's inexperienced. He's young, and that's going to show. He's going to make mistakes. He's going to put it into the wall, but he's going to get back up and probably get better. Is my assumption. But it's his rookie year, and so I'm not going to put him very high. Next up, I'm going to put Esteban Ocon in, this is 19th place. There have been talks all off season about the Mercedes engine and the Red Bull engine, but not really that many talks of the Ferrari engine being fantastic. Not necessarily that it'll be bad either, but not really any talks of it being earth shattering, being up on that level with Mercedes or Red Bull even. So, and Haas, of course, have that Ferrari engine in their car, and they've just always been a backmarker team to maybe midfield at best. And I don't think that Esteban is going to get any better. as a driver. So I think he's honestly kind of coasting throughout the rest of his career. I don't see him making any blockbuster moves. He's too old. He's been in it for too long to like, and it's not like he's some well established driver that's like just never had a good car, good enough chance in a good car. Like if you look at somebody like a Nico Hulkenberg, actually, someone who's very recognized as a very talented driver, who's just never really had the machinery to compete for a title. People don't see Esteban Ocon in the same light at all. I feel like he's just a very midfield driver. I mean, he's not bad. He's not bad at all. You don't win a Formula One race by being a bad driver usually. Um, but he's not great either. He's never going to challenge for a championship or anything like that. And there were points last season where essentially a rookie, Ollie Behrman, was really showing him up, showing the veteran up. Which I kind of like Ollie Behrman, and so that was cool to see. But yeah, I'm not expecting great things for Esteban. So 19th he goes. Then in 18th, who in 18th place I am putting Sergio Perez. If it'll let me. Okay, here we go. Obviously, Cadillac, another Ferrari engine team. So still questions of how good that engine will be. But and Cadillac are brand new. Obviously, there's a whole lot of hype around them with the Super Bowl commercial and just the entire backing of America, the biggest country in the world, at least like financially and attention wise. Um, so lot of attention, a lot of eyes on Cadillac, a lot of people hoping for them to do really well. I don't think they'll even be bad per se, but I don't expect incredible things for them, just because it's so hard to come into F1 as a new team and be able to have success early on. Yeah, I think that this is probably the best possible time for them to come into the sport, with it being a new set of regulations and all the teams are brand new to these cars as well. So they certainly could have picked a worse time to come into the sport, but no time will ever be good enough or beneficial enough to make it easy to enter Formula One as a brand new team. Therefore, I have Sergio in 18th. And then rounding out our bottom tier here, I'm gonna put Pierre Gasly. I kind of riding off Alpine being the worst car by far from last year. I don't think they're going to be great. A good Mercedes engine is only going to take them so far, and I don't see Pierre as like a upper echelon of driver to be able to make a whole lot out of a lackluster car. Sure, he's capable of the odd, great qualifying performance or something like that. We saw in Vegas in 2024, I believe it was, where he qualified like third and then had engine troubles early in the race. But regardless, so he's, definitely very good, capable of a very good lap on Saturday. But I don't think it is consistent enough, especially if the Alpine is going to continue to not be very good. So I am going to leave Pierre in 17th. Moving on up to our second tier, I'm going to start off with Gabby Bortoleto. Of course, he had to, drive around in the Kick Sauber last year, which was a better car than the Kick Sauber of 2024 was. But of course, he had rookie struggles and all that. Would crash and would just be slower. But especially towards the end of the year, he was putting some good performances in and beating Nico Hulkenberg, his definitely more experienced teammate, especially on a Sunday. No, I got that wrong. He beat him on a Saturday. He out qualified Nico Hulkenberg very consistently. Now, Nico did have some Saturday struggles. It was apparent, but I do think that Audi have poured a lot of resources into this team. I think Gabriel is going to continue to grow as a driver, but he's still young. He's still pretty inexperienced, and so um, I don't think he will be able to compete with some of the stronger teams, because I think that there will still be that upper tier of teams that just they're gonna have a head and shoulders better car, and they're gonna have the drivers to drive it. So I just don't think he's there yet. I don't think the Audi will be there yet to fight with them. But moving on to 15th, I'm going to put Liam Lawson. I think Liam going into his second actual full year of F1, I feel like he grew quite a bit last season. I think it kind of flew under the radar of a lot of people just because he had that swap back into the RB, and then I feel like most of the eyes. Oh, what is this? I feel like most of the eyes last year were on Yuki Tsunoda and his struggles in the Red Bull. And then, of course, on the title fight, I mean, it's kind of hard to pay attention to the people at the back when the stuff at the front is so entertaining and so interesting and so much attention is there. But I think Liam had some good performances, still had some good struggles as well. Good struggles. He still had some struggles throughout the year, even when he got put back in the Racing Bulls. But I think that this is going to be a great step forward for Liam if he is truly going to try and carve out a longer career in Formula One instead of just flaming out early on. If he's going to do that, then he's going to have to make leaps and bounds in terms of progress this year, be able to consistently put that car in the points. And I think he's definitely going to beat his rookie teammate. I mean, that's step one. It sounds easy enough, but you still have to get out there on track and do it. So I think he's going to. Of course, he got beat by Isaac Hadjar last year, but of course, we're going to see this year in the Red Bull if Isaac is truly all that, or maybe not. So we'll get to him in a little bit, obviously, because he's on here. Next up, in 14th, I'm going to put Valtteri Bottas. Again, the Cadillac, brand new. We don't know how fast it's going to be. And it's obviously kind of echoing a lot of the points I made when it came to Checo in 18th. That we don't know how fast the car is going to be. All we know is that it's traditionally very hard to come into the sport as a brand new team and do very well. So, not really hopeful for them to, be one of the quicker cars right out the gate. I think that would be unrealistic to assume. So I think Bottas is a better driver than Perez. Now, Perez did struggle in the Red Bull towards the end of his Red Bull time, but before that, he was known as a master of the midfield. And so maybe the Cadillac car being a midfield tier car will suit Sergio Perez right to his strengths, but overall, I think that Valtteri is a better driver. If I was drafting a Formula One team and had to put one of them in the car, I would pick Bottas. So that's why I've gone with him. So much higher. I mean, only 3 places higher or 4, but still, that's why I've gone with him up in 14th. Anyway, moving on. I am going to put in 13th place Oliver Bearman. I'm a big Ollie Bearman fan. I like him. I think he's a good kid. I think he's got a bright future ahead of him. I thought it was impressive how he was able to back in 2024 take pole in Saudi Arabia for Formula 2. And then when Carlos Sainz got appendicitis, he quickly came up into the Ferrari and was able to score good points in it. Just after very very short notice. That's always very impressive because that preparation is so important. The higher up you go in any sport, let alone driving a car at 210 miles an hour, that takes an incredible amount of work and preparation, and to not have a whole lot of that compared to your competitors and still be able to go out there and perform comparably. Yes, I know the Ferrari obviously is one of the faster cars usually, but still, you still got to get in there and drive it, and he did that. And he's had his rookie mistakes, but I think that he's on the up, so to speak. I see a very bright future for Ollie Behrman, and I think that 2026 will be another step forward, despite the Haas maybe not being the best car in the world. Then in, where are we in? 16, 15, 14. We're in 12th. I'm going to go with Nico Hulkenberg. If you couldn't tell, I'm kind of sensing that the teams will kind of be split. Like there will be like, oh, the top teams and then the bottom teams, you know. So that's kind of what I'm seeing will happen. Of course, this could be completely wrong and everything could be turned on its head. But um I think Nico's an incredibly talented driver who, throughout his whole career, has been put in some pretty bad cars and has put those pretty bad cars in places that they frankly didn't belong, time in and time out. Um, so, and I mean, the culmination of all of that was his podium in Silverstone last year. So, I think he will basically be best of the rest. Essentially. We'll get a little bit more into that in a second, but yeah, Nico Hulkenberg in 12th. I think that he is a better driver, head and shoulders, than everybody below him. And obviously car performance takes into a factor. I think Audi will be not the slowest car. With how many resources they've poured into it, both drivers are already familiar with the car and the team and each other. So I think that goes a long, long way. And Audi have been preparing for 2026 deliberately, kind of more intentionally than some of the other teams have been. Anyway, enough about Nico Hulkenberg and Audi. Rounding out our bottom 12, I think you kind of know where I'm going with this. Fernando Alonso. It's funny, I made a video a couple months ago speculating that maybe he could win the championship outright because of Adrian Newey stepping up into being the team principal as well. And then, of course, his input designing the car. But the more I've thought about it, I mean, the man is what, like 45 or 44? No, he's like 43. Whatever. He's in his early to mid 40s. Okay, he hasn't won a race in over half of his career. I know he's been kind of scrounging around in lackluster Ferraris and then the whole McLaren Honda crap, and then Alpine and Aston Martin, but he's not in his prime anymore. And I know we love to joke about him being a rookie and him being immortal and all that, but I mean the man is human. And he's is he an absolutely phenomenal Hall of Fame driver? They don't have a Hall of Fame, but you get the point. Yes, he is. He's one of the most naturally talented people to ever sit behind the wheel of a car. But I just think his time is up. I don't think Aston Martin will have the fastest car. I just don't think they've had the development. Adrian Newey can only do so much. So I just don't think I see the Aston Martin car being better head and shoulders than any of the 5 teams that I've shown that you can tell are left for me to rank. So, but Fernando Alonso, of course, will have the. I do think he'll get a podium. this year. I think the field will be relatively close. Just the rankings will more come down to consistency of being able to score those podiums, score those high point scoring positions, and I think these bottom teams will just more often than not be, fighting for like 7th through 10th rather than the podium. So I think that's going to be the greatest separator. I also think there will probably be a lot of DNFs this year, just getting used to the new regulations and the new engines. So I think the bottom teams are going to be the ones that suffer the more mechanical DNFs, engine failures, things of that sort. Anyway, moving on to our top 10. Top 10, everybody. In 10th, I have gone for Alex Albon. I think Alex really did prove himself. I know there are some questions going into last year about how is he going to fare against a very well-established teammate in Carlos Sainz after having faced the likes of Logan Sargent and Franco Colapinto and Nick DeVries, and of course Gotifi. Not exactly the highest tier of teammates after being destroyed by Max Verstappen in his Red Bull times. But Alex stepped up to the plate and he swung well. He had a good run. He had some very good point scoring finishes consistently, especially in the first half of the season. Alex really seemed to be putting the whipping on to Carlos Sainz. Of course, Sainz understandably adjusting to the new team, but regardless, um, Alex did kind of show that he is capable of putting in a good showing against a race winning teammate, a very well established and well liked and well known teammate. So I have him finishing in 10th. I think the Williams will still be good, um, especially with that Mercedes engine, but I still don't think that it will be better than the McLaren or the Mercedes, of course, the other two teams that I've yet to rank that share that Mercedes engine. I still think the top four teams are going to be the top four teams that we're used to, from the last 2 years. So, and that's not even really to Williams' fault or Alex Albon's fault or Carlos Sainz's fault. I just don't think that they will be able to do enough to knock those teams off of the throne that they're already established on. Anyway, in ninth place, oh boy, Lewis Hamilton. Again, kind of like Fernando Alonso, Lewis is getting up there in age, and his opening season with Ferrari last year didn't go very well at all. There were so many times where he would be knocked out in Q1, or he'd make it to Q2, but he'd qualify like 13th or whatever. Like, just not great. He spent the latter half of last year just praying for points at all. And of course, new regulations. He's now spent a year in Maranello. Do I think that he maybe will get a podium? Do I think he'll maybe have higher ceiling than last year? Yeah. Yeah. But I think the clock is ticking on Lewis Hamilton. And I think his time in Formula One is almost up. Unfortunately, I do. I'll admit I'm not the most seasoned or old Formula One fan. I only got into the sport just around the beginning of the 2024 season, and so I never got to witness Lewis in his prime. And I certainly wish I could have. Obviously, we have YouTube and all that to go back on, but watching it in real time and experiencing it as it was happening must have been something truly special. But I just have to see it how it is now, and it doesn't look very good anymore. So his last year at Mercedes, even though he won 2 races, um, it wasn't that great. The year before that was even worse, arguably. Well, arguably, because he didn't win any races, but also Max just tore up the field in 2023. Yeah, maybe you could say his 2023 was better than 2024, despite no race wins. Regardless, that's not the point. 2025, Lewis Hamilton just, it didn't look like a 7-time world champion, 105 or whatever time race winner. It didn't look like any of that. It looked like an old man who just didn't have it anymore. It looked like Jets Brett Favre, unfortunately, or Saints Earl Campbell, or Cardinals Emmitt Smith. It's like, dude, your time is up. I hate to say it, but it's just the brutal truth. So I have Lewis Hamilton finishing in 9th. In 8th place, I have Isaac Hadjar. I think that he will do significantly better than any Red Bull second driver will have done in the past two years. For sure. Like head and shoulders. I know in 2024, Checo finished in 8th. But that was largely due to Red Bull still having essentially the RB19 level dominance for the first third or quarter at least of the season, which is where he raked in most of his points. And then he was just able to hold on to it because the field was that spread out after you got past the top 4 teams that no one else could catch him. But if you take out the first 7 races of 2024, Perez would have finished in the bottom quarter of the standings. So not great at all. I think Isaac will come in and sure, helped by the new regulations, the car won't be as tuned to Max's preference as it will be later on in the regulations as they have more time to develop and tune the car. Of course, because Max is the golden goose. It should be tuned to his preference because he's the one who's proven to be able to get the most out of it, obviously. But I think right now the car is the most neutral that it will ever be for them both. And so I think this is Isaac's best chance to really step into that team, step into his own. I think he is going to take steps forward, but just it's not even necessarily about what he lacks. It's about everybody else around him. Like the guys that we have left here, the 7 drivers remaining, they're good. And the cars that they're in are good. Like that, like Isaac being just behind these guys is not a knock on him at all. The fact that he's in the conversation with these guys, the fact that I'm predicting him to beat Lewis Hamilton in a Ferrari in his second year in Formula One is an incredible testament to his just rocket of growth that he had last year. So I am predicting good things for Isaac, and I think he'll honestly improve. In 2027, I would not be surprised if he finished in the top 5 or 6. So, but he is still growing. He's not at his peak yet, I would assume. Moving on to 7th, right? Yes. I'm going with Carlos Sainz. Again, not kind of like what I said about Isaac. This isn't really a knock on Carlos. This is just the people ahead of him and their cars are just it's like the 96 Chicago Bulls. It's like, how do you go up against that? So I think Carlos will obviously take steps within the Williams team compared to last year. I could even maybe see a race win for him. I think if Williams is going to win a race, which they very well could, I think that they will be closer to the top 4 teams than they were last year. And they were already pretty close last year, certainly better than they had been in recent memory. So I think if anyone's going to win a race or two for Williams, it'll be Carlos. I think he's proven himself, obviously, as an established race-winning driver, able to go toe-to-toe with the likes of Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris, a younger Lando Norris, but regardless. And so I think now that he's more adjusted to the Williams team, I think he will be able to get more out of that car than Alex can because he's just a naturally better driver. And that leaves us with one final spot before we get into our top 5. And I'm going to hand it to Kimi Antonelli. This is just, I think Kimi is just not as developed, not as experienced. I think Mercedes very well could have the fastest car overall. Like if you put all 22 drivers in the Mercedes car. Where was I going with that? I guess if you put all 22 drivers in the Mercedes car, then maybe the championship looks a little different. But that, I don't know what the point of me saying that was. Regardless, I think despite Mercedes maybe having the quickest car, I mean Kimi Antonelli is by far the least developed and experienced driver of the remaining, and so I just don't think that he'll be able to take the car quite as far as some others maybe would be able to. He's still young, he's still developing. I think he'll still again take steps forward, maybe a race win or 2 or 3 or a few more. Maybe he'll surprise me and go toe to toe with George, but I just don't think he's there yet. That leaves us with our top 5. And in 5th place, I'm going with Charles Leclerc. I don't know if you can see it behind me. I have a Charles Leclerc hat. I'm not a hater. I really like him. He's my second favorite driver. But this just comes down to the fact that I think that the McLaren and the Mercedes and maybe even the Red Bull will be faster cars. So I think that there's only so much that Charles is going to be able to get out of that Ferrari, especially if that Ferrari engine proves to be unreliable over the course of the year, and he has a few mechanical DNFs, which I honestly could see happening. So we'll have to see, but I think that he'll be able to drag it. He's gonna get every ounce out of that car that he possibly could. I promise you that. I just think that it's a limitation of the car, honestly. So that's why I have Charles in 5th. And in 4th, I'm going with Oscar Piastri. Oscar obviously showed his ability to go toe to toe with the entire field. He led the championship for the majority of last season and then kind of slipped away at the end. I think that the fact that it slipped away at the end is really going to eat at him. And obviously he's going to come out trying to, get that off of his back. But I mean, it's the same old McLaren team, and I mean, Lando is the reigning world champion. Say what you want about him, but I mean, ultimately, he's a worthy world champion. That there are no unworthy world champions in this sport. I don't care how fast the car is, how slow the rest of the field is. It still takes more talent than you and I will ever have to get in the car and keep it on the track. Those cars are death traps. They're very technologically advanced with all the safety features you could ever want in a Formula One car without compromising speed, but they are flying death traps. And so, say what you want about Lando Norris being favored, which I still believe he is. He's still favored by McLaren. And I think that may be the difference in Lando beating Oscar this upcoming season. But regardless, he still has to go toe to toe with his very formidable teammate, who debatably gets favoritism within the team. Regardless, speaking of Lando Norris, I have him finishing in 3rd place. The reigning world champion, obviously, I just don't think that McLaren will have quite the car advantage, even if they maybe do have the fastest car on paper, but by a slight margin. I don't think it will be nearly significant enough. They're not going to be winning any races by 30 seconds. I don't think any team is going to win a race by more than like 10 seconds this year. I don't think any of the cars will be that head and shoulders faster unless it's like a very specific track like Monza, where just one team is able to set the car up better than anybody else can with the wings and all that. Regardless, I don't see any one team being quite as dominant as McLaren were in 2025. So I think Lando is going to suffer as a result of that, and therefore have to settle for third in the championship in his title defense. And that leaves us with our final two. Maybe the two most talked about names in the sport right now. I mean, you see what shirt I'm wearing, right? That's right. Call me what you want. But you can't call me wrong when I'm right at the end of the season. Max Verstappen is going to come back with a fury. Watch Max's interviews from, recent times and how much more mature he is and how he emphasizes that he doesn't want to just stick around in the sport forever and win 10 championships and all that. He just does it because he enjoys it. Very Kimi Raikkonen-esque. Yeah, I don't buy it. I don't buy it, Max. I don't believe for a moment that you are truly as unbothered by this as you claim to be. If Max didn't want to win the championship, now this is where he's telling the truth. He's still driving in F1 because he wants to. He doesn't need to. There's nothing more that he could ever accomplish to like prove more. I mean, other than like, okay, winning like 8 championships and like 110 races to officially solidify himself in everyone's eyes as the statistical GOAT, whatever. He's still the greatest driver of all time, in my opinion. And my opinion is the only one that matters. Kidding. But obviously, if he didn't care about winning the championship, he wouldn't be driving in F1. He drives in Formula One to compete, to win the championship, and he's not going to settle for anything less. I think that with the, a big reason why Max lost the championship last year was thanks to several races in the middle of the year when, like early to middle of the year, where Red Bull were just so far off the pace. They just couldn't set the car up right. The strategy was wrong. The tires were falling apart. Like everything was horrible. And he still came 2 points shy of winning the championship. I think if Red Bull's able to fix their crap and the field is going to be a lot tighter, McLaren is not going to have quite the advantage. There isn't going to be a team that just comes out and doubles everyone else's points like McLaren did last year. Max is gonna walk away with this title. I'm telling you right now. And George has proven to be an incredible driver in his own right. No disrespect to him, despite the verbal shade that he's thrown at Max. I can forgive it because it's just competitive banter, and he's entitled to his own opinion about Max and all that. He's still a really good driver. I also think, paired with the fact that I think that Mercedes is going to have the fastest car overall, that George will be the one to put up the most fight to Max. And I think that it could even be a good title fight going down to the last few races, kind of like 2024. Like they tried to hype up that 2024 was going to be. But like 2024, I think it is going to come up Dutch in 2026. So, but with my driver rankings out of the way, or my driver championship predictions out of the way, let us move on over and blaze through these constructors standing championship predictions. Obviously, now we have the addition of Cadillac as the 11th team, so this is going to make things even more interesting. In last place, I've gone with Alpine. Just traditionally, they haven't been very fast in the past few years. Their driver lineup is not the most impressive either. Like, if they had Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc, I don't think they'd be winning the Constructors' Championship. Nor do I think either team would win nor do I think either guy would win the Drivers' Championship, but they wouldn't be in last. I'll tell you that. Regardless, I just don't expect, even with the Mercedes engine, I don't expect them to be able to hold the car together reliability-wise. And obviously with all the other elements that go into making a car, not just the engine, obviously. So that is why I've gone for them to finish last. Then, in second to last, so in 10th place, I will go for, it's one of those bottom three. It's going to be Cadillac. I do think that Cadillac will do relatively well. I mean, they have too experienced of a driver lineup to do outright horribly in the sport like a lot of new teams would do. But I don't think that they're going to have what it takes to quite. I think this could be a situation where like the gap between like 7th place in the constructors and 10th could be like 10 points. It could be very close. But I just think that Cadillac maybe are going to have some reliability issues, like a lot of new teams often do. So, and that's going to be what holds them back, despite their experience. So, but still, could be worse. Then, in 9th, I'm going to go for a Haas. I think that they're going to have kind of a down year. I feel like they had a pretty good year last year, all things considered, having a rookie driver, having another driver who's completely new to that platform of the car, and that Ferrari engine. So I don't think they'll do terribly. I could see this season again, like I mentioned, with Cadillac being a situation where like some of the bottom teams are only separated by a couple points. But I just think that Haas, again, sharing that Ferrari engine with Cadillac, I'm worried about how reliable the engine will be, and so I just don't feel like they will be very high in the rankings. But I do still think that they'll have a few good results. Maybe a Haas podium for the first time ever. I mean, Ollie almost got one in Mexico. So anyway, moving on to 8th place. I think it's going to be no, it's going to be Audi. Gotcha. It's going to be Audi. Obviously, Audi, brand new to the sport, taking over the Sauber platform, which was not the best platform in the sport, obviously. So, it's not like they're taking over Mercedes or anything like that. So they still have their work cut out for them, even if they've been putting in a lot of the work in developing for 2026 specifically, behind the scenes, even during the past season. So, but I think regardless of that, there's only so much that they can do. So, actually, let me look at something. I might want to actually amend something. I definitely want to amend something. Forget what I just said. Racing Bulls are going to be in 8th place. I mean, having Arvid Lindblad is not a bad thing by any means. Not saying he's a bad driver, but he's a rookie. He's going to struggle. And then Liam Lawson, still questions about his development and his ability to really grow as a driver. And I just think that they're not going to really have the driver lineup, if anything, to really put in those really great results. You know, those one-off results that are going to be able to give them a good chunk of points all at once to help them move up the rankings of the lower teams. So I think they're going to just get stuck in 8th. And then Audi will be in 7th. Again, kind of the points I just mentioned of how they're still new. They're not taking over a premier team by any means, and so they're still going to struggle. And for all the praise I gave their driver lineup, it's not like they have like the McLaren driver lineup or anything like that. For all the praise that I could give Nico and Gabby, they're not race winners. One of them has 1 podium in his career, so it's not like they're gonna have a driver lineup that can just carry a lackluster car to the top. So I think they're just gonna get stuck in 7th. Then in 6th, obviously gonna be Aston Martin, heavily carried by Fernando Alonso, who I believe to be the best of the bottom 12 drivers. Of course, I do think they're gonna have a pretty good car. I think their car will be kind of dragged down by Lance Stroll. I could very well see Fernando fighting up there near the top on occasion, maybe even getting a win. Maybe. I honestly kind of doubt it, but maybe at least a podium or two. Because I don't think the Aston Martin car will be bad. I mean, it's an Adrian Newey car, so it can't be that bad. But I think that there's only so far for the team standings that Fernando can take it. Moving on to 5th, it's going to be Williams. I think that Williams are going to be a lot closer to the top 4 teams, kind of like what I mentioned when talking about the driver standings. Williams will be closer. It'll be seen more as like a top 5 with Williams included than just a top 4 of, well, these 4 here at the bottom. But I still think that they still have some more work to do. They're not quite there yet, so they're going to be just behind in 5th. And then in 4th, I'm going for Ferrari. Yeah, I know. Still questions about their car, about their development, about their reliability. I just can't really put them any higher than 4th. When I believe these 2 teams are going to be the fastest cars, probably. Well, I think these 3 teams are going to be the 3 fastest cars. I know there were times where the Red Bull was really bad last year, but Max obviously coming within 2 points of the drivers' championship brought Red Bull up in the constructors basically on his own. I don't think that'll quite be the case where like Max is dragging a car that would ordinarily be like 4th or 5th in the constructors to even higher. I do think that the car will just be faster naturally, but but yeah. Then 3rd, I have Red Bull. This is where they finished last year in the Constructors' Championship. I do think that this will be a more emphatic 3rd, not just carried by Max. Now, obviously, I believe Max will win the Drivers' Championship, and so I can't just say that Max won't be heavily influencing this, but I think that obviously Isaac Hadjar will do a much better job of carrying his weight than Yuki Tsunoda did last year. Anyway, moving on to our final 2. If you can give me a drum roll, please. I don't know if you can hear this. I'm drumming my desk. My Constructors' Champions for 2026 will be Mercedes, and then followed by McLaren. I think that the Constructors' battle will actually be tighter than the Drivers' Championship battle. I think that George being able to put a little gap between himself and Lando will be kind of the deciding factor. Even if George isn't able to win the Drivers' Championship, he will essentially drag Mercedes to the Constructors' Championship. Just over McLaren. I think Kimi will also just do enough, finishing in 6th. I had him to get Mercedes there. Obviously, Mercedes rumored to have the fastest car, the best engine going into the new regulations. So I believe that they have the driver lineup to be able to capitalize on that. But with all that said and done, these are my Constructors' Championship and my Drivers' Championship predictions for the 2026 Formula One season. Let me know in the comments if you agree with me or not. And if you agree, then great. And if you disagree, then please be so inclined as to let me know in the comments what you disagree with. And maybe we can have some fun little discourse in the comments below. But with that all said and done, it is about time we wrap up this video. So I want to thank you for watching. Also, leave a comment if you like this F1 content. I know I'm typically a gaming channel, but I would like to be able to bring in some more of my other interests into the channel here. So let me know if you like that and want to see more of that, and I'll come up with more ideas and ways to do that. So without anything else, please like the video if you did like it, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video.